everybody. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to the first meeting of the Los Angeles City Council in 2004. This is Tuesday, January 6th. Happy New Year to everybody, and welcome back. The City Council meets normally every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Han, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weisstein, Padilla, 12 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session, and before beginning with the matters appearing on today's agenda, let me recognize Councilmember Villaraigosa to lead us in our salute to the flag.
Please stand. Put your hand over your chest. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Ludlow moves and Mr. Reyes seconds.
Mandatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Zine moves and Mr. Garcetti seconds.
Mr. President, inasmuch as council has achieved a quorum, do you wish to take public comments at this time?
Yes, first order of business under recently amended council rules is to take public comment at the beginning of our meetings. And I do not have requests from members of the public under general public comment today. Public comment is closed. Next item, please.
On the regular agenda, Mr. President, item number 1 is an item notice for public hearing, and I believe there are cards on this item.
We do have a card on item number 1. Let's call this item special.
The next items are also public hearing items, items 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they are ordinances relative to street lighting districts.
Items 2 through 5 now before us, and I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are open, public hearings are closed. Any requests for specials, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Next items 6 and 7 are public hearings relative to street vacations. If there are no protests, council should instruct the city engineer to proceed with the street vacations.
And once again, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on items 6 and 7. Public hearings are open, public hearings are closed. Are there requests for specials, items 6 or 7? Seeing none, we have the recommendations before us on items 6 and 7. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 8 through 25. On item number 16, the ordinance is on the file. However, it will not be considered today and will be presented to council tomorrow. And also item number 25, there are 2 reports on the file. A motion is required.
Okay. Let's call item 25 special. Members, items 8 through 25 now before us. These items have had public hearings. A motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Mr. Zine?
Special.
17 called special by Mr. Zine. Ms. Miskowski?
We'll make a motion for a limited reopening of the public hearing.
Ms. Miskowski calls item 24 special.
I'd like to request, and I just consulted with Mr. Zine, continue 17 for a week, please.
Item 17 called special by Mr. Zine. Request to continue for 1 week. Is there any objection?
To Wednesday, January 14th.
Seeing no objection, item 17 is continued for 1 week. Mr. Labange?
Item 15, special.
15 called special by
Thank you.
Mr. Labange. Any other specials? Any other specials? Seeing none, on the balance of the items, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
Items 26 through 75 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Without objection, these matters shall be before the City Council today. Items 26 through 75 now before us. Members, I do have cards at item 33. We'll call that special. On the balance of the items, I do not have requests for members of the public to address the council. Public hearings are open. Public hearings are closed on those matters. Any specials? Mr. Garcetti.
I believe the speaker cards are here because they'd like a continuance, and I'm okay with that. That's in my district. If we could continue that for 1 week.
Okay. Members, we have a request to continue item 33 for 1 week. Seeing no objection, item 33 is continued. Any other specials? 26 through 75.
Item 66.
66, call special by Ms. Misikowski. Any other specials? Items 26 through 75. Seeing no further requests for specials, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Next item, please.
On the supplemental agenda, item number 76 is the mayor's veto message.
Okay, we have item 76 now before us. Okay, Ms. Misikowski calls that special for Mr. Weiss. Next item, please.
Going back to the items called special, item number 1 was called special inasmuch as there are cards from the public.
Item number 1 now before us, and the council calls forward Ben Resnick, followed by Fred Gaines, Allison Thomas, Lisa Sarkin, and other speakers to follow.
Mr. President, will there be a certain amount of time allocated to each side?
This is a matter in the 2nd Council District. Ms. Gruhl, do you wish to structure the public comment?
I think what we would do is have each of the sides be able to have their their minutes, the number of speakers, every speaker would be able to have their opportunity. I think what you're asking, Mr. Resnick, is that you have more time because you have less speakers. Is that what you're suggesting?
Just me? Yes, because we did not bring speakers. We just have the property owner and myself.
I think a few extra minutes. I mean, if we had 30 speakers, I wouldn't then give you an hour. So I think we'd be reasonable and work through that.
You trust us to be reasonable, Mr. Resnick?
I think most of the time.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ben Resnick with Jeffrey Mangels, Butler, and Marlboro. I'm here before you representing Mrs. Beatrice Coury, who's in the front row here. Before you today is an appeal by neighbors regarding a 5-lot subdivision, which was approved by the advisory agency, was also approved by the Planning Commission. It was appealed to the City Council to reduce it to 4 lots. And I understand, and I know you may say, what's the big deal between 4 lots and 5 lots? But Mrs. Coury here, who's in her late 80s, has owned this property for 60 years and is ill and seeking to retire at this point. And the problem we have with the 4 lots versus the 5 lots is that I'm not often in a position to tell the City Council you'd be violating the law, but today, if you were to approve 4 lots, you'd be violating Government Code Section 65589.5. It is applicable. Your city attorney has determined that it's applicable. It's part of the state law that encourages the development of housing. And by going to 4 lots, you need to make the finding, which you are being asked today to vote on, that there is a public health and safety issue. In other words, the only way to reduce it from 5 to 4, because 5 is consistent with the plan and the zoning, is you need to make a finding that there's a public health and safety problem, and that by reducing it to 4 lots, you're solving the problem. That's before you today. There are new findings that have just been written over the holidays for you to adopt today. And the finding that you will be making today is that there's a history supposedly of some flooding in the LA River, which our client denies, and which the county flood control denies, and that based on some history of flooding, reducing this to 4 lots instead of 5 lots will take care of the public health and safety. Of course, you make no mention in the findings of why the developer could not perhaps build some retaining walls, other structures to prevent any so-called flooding. I think it's important to understand that this is state law. It says you cannot reduce the density unless you make that finding of public health and safety. And it's got to be very specific, quantifiable findings, the code says. What you have before you today is obviously nothing of the kind. There's nothing in the record to show there has been any flooding on this property or a history of flooding on this property. And as such, Mrs. Curry can attest to that as well. We've submitted a letter to you today with a declaration from the project engineer who talked to the County Flood Control District, who confirm all that. So what you would be doing today is in direct violation of Government Code Section 65589.5J. We ask you, notwithstanding I guess the pressure to move on and approve only 4, to look at it more carefully, check with your city attorney if you so desire. But this code section is clear, and in fact, you would be violating a housing code section which is designed to encourage housing that's consistent with the general plan and the zone. We filed for 7 originally. It was approved at 5. To go to 4 is a violation of this law. And I can't tell you more than that, other than if you look at the material and review the material, and you'll see that. It is a violation. I would hate to have, and by the way, the burden of proof under the code section is on the city. If my client were to file a lawsuit to ask the court to review this, the burden is on the city to show there's in the record evidence of flooding or other damage based on the findings you're being asked to make. The finding you're going to make is as follows. During storms of 1991-92, retaining walls behind 3 homes on the south side of Kelsey failed. That's it. Somebody stood up and said that. That's not substantial evidence in the record. The other finding, that floods in 1992, 94, 97 caused property damage to homes. Well, no damage was caused to our client's property, first of all, but that is just basically testimony from people without any evidence in the record that it occurred in this site, nor have you fulfilled the second requirement of the section, which says that if you do find that flooding occurred, what are the feasible mitigation measures? Why can't we just build a berm or a wall to protect? You don't have to reduce it to 4 lots instead of 5. The difference between 4 and 5 is important to Mrs. Curry. It is important to the ability to develop the property. And as such, she's in escrow now to sell it to a developer who can develop 5 lots. Each lot will be 13,000 feet, and 1 lot will be 17,000 feet. I ask you, do you need lots bigger than that? That is in fact, what's before you today. I would like Mrs. Curry only to stand up to be able to confirm to you on the record she's never experienced flooding problems, having lived there for 60 years. Mrs. Curry?
Mr. Resnick, and if I may ask you to conclude.
I'm done.
Beatrice Corey, Sizemore Corey, and I've lived there for 60 years, and my sister-in-law lived there before me and when I got married, and she's sitting right here, and neither one of us has seen any flooding at all around our place or anywhere else, with the exception the whole of Los Angeles don't have enough sewer system. That has nothing to do with my property because I don't have any flooding. And the street don't have any flooding. My neighbors, I don't know why they want to be, I've been nice to them. I've been nice to the Vosslers. I've been nice to Ross. I've also been nice to Vincent. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for
Now
the
let me
additional
call.
time.
Now let me call upon the balance of the speakers, and for the record, Mr. Resnick's presentation was just over about 5 minutes. Mr. Gaines, Allison Thomas, Lisa Sarkin, Ronald Taylor, and Edward Rosen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Happy New Year. Fred Gaines of the law offices of Gaines and Stacy here today on behalf of Allison Thomas and Gary Ross, the immediate neighbors at 4040 Beck Avenue, as well as the other appellants and representatives of the neighborhood. I'm going to ask at this time, and I'm going to try to summarize the comments so the speakers can be brief. Will all of those who are here today in support of the appeal and in support of the unanimous Plum Committee recommendation please stand? These are all residents of the immediate neighborhood that have come unanimously to seek your support for the Plum Committee recommendation to grant the appeal in this particular case. Mr. Resnick calls into question the findings that have been made by the city. We think the testimony, the Plum Committee held 2 hearings on this matter. They took extensive testimony which supported the findings that were made, including regarding the likelihood of flooding incidences in this area. In addition, because of the questions that have been raised, we've gone since the hearing and added additional information into the record, including a letter from the Department of Public Works dated December 29, 2003, which confirms this property to be located in the special flood hazard area as identified by the City of Los Angeles and within the FEMA flood insurance map rate area 1A, which is the highest risk area, and that letter is confirmed by the City Department of Public Works. In addition, we did a search of the LA Times. We had 22 articles dating back all the way to 1938 when the bridge over the flood control area on Colfax, immediately adjacent to this property, collapsed in the floods. 22 articles from 1938 through the current time reporting on flooding in this particular area. Councilman Labange would love some of the research we did. One of the books was The Los Angeles River, which is a book I know that I think I've seen it in his office, and talks about the history of Los Angeles River, and there's actually photographs in here of the collapse of the bridge in 1938 at Colfax, as well as other flooding instances that have happened over time. The bottom line is this person owns a large property, they want to come subdivide it, the issue is how many lots they get, and the determination has been made by your Plum Committee with evidence in the record as that the setback from the river needs to be greater. We need to cut this back to 4 lots so that setback can be consistent with the houses that are there, can be consistent with the flood information that we have, and the committee discussed how it can be consistent with the fact that this Los Angeles River area is intended to be turned into one of the last great parks in Los Angeles. And rather than putting housing directly, immediately adjacent to that, we're going to have a setback like the other homes have, so that in between the public areas of the river where you have bicycle pathways and public uses, you'll have a setback between that and the homes, as opposed to having homes directly adjacent to what are going to be those publicly used areas. So we think that the findings are sufficient, that the facts in the records clearly support the findings. Your Plum Committee was unanimous in their 3-0 recommendation. The neighborhood is here unanimous to support that recommendation. We ask that you accept that, approve this track map, but at the lower density that's been recommended by your Plum Committee. And we appreciate the time. The speakers will secede their time unless the council has any questions for any of the particular neighbors who have submitted cards. It will be unnecessary to call them for individual testimony. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And we will add their cards for the record. Again, I'll read their names: Allison Thomas, Lisa Sarkin, Ronald Taylor, and Edward Razin. Your cards will be part of the file. This concludes public comment on item number 1. Members wishing to be heard, beginning with the chair of our Plum Committee, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council Chair. One is that in each one of our districts, we have these very difficult cases. And when we get to this point, I always look to the guidance and leadership of the council office. And in this case, I can assure my colleagues that Councilmember Gruhl did all she could to try to convene and try to put together a consensus, a compromise. And what our deliberations during committee, these issues that were pointed out were deliberated. And I need to share with you that we did follow the advice of our city attorney. Every time we had a legal question or a legal issue, we resorted to our counsel, and they were directing our path in how we were coming to our conclusions. I just need to say that for Councilmember Gruhl to be able to step up and try to establish this consensus is not an easy thing to do. But when you look at what fits the neighborhood as a whole, what fits the community as a whole, I need to follow that direction because of the way it was handled. And I think it was handled very professionally. I think both sides were given their just due, and I need to respect and support my colleague in this effort in establishing the kind of environment that is being sought by the person who is elected by that district. So that being said, I just wanted to ask my colleagues to support us in this Plum Committee report. We did follow our due diligence. We did follow the process. We did follow our legal advice, ZERS from the City Attorney's Office, and I'd just like to encourage you to support the Plum Committee report. Thank you very much.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Reyes, for your leadership, and as well as Mr. Weiss and Mr. Cardenas, who supported this action in the Plum Committee. I want to stand as well in support of the appeals in this case, and as Mr. Reyes mentioned, no project in your district where you're trying to balance the needs of homeowners who own the property as well as the affected homeowners is easy. Those of you that have not been to Colfax Meadows, it's one of the most beautiful areas of my district. It is tree-lined, large lots, a wonderful area for families and children. It's an area that we want to help preserve. We held, I think, at least a dozen meetings trying to figure out a way to balance the needs. And I think that we feel, and the city attorney has indicated, that the findings that have been presented are in fact sufficient to grant this appeal today. And I think it is important that you see the number of my constituents who have taken time out during their busy schedules as well to be here today to testify, that they have participated in weekends and evening meetings for hours upon hours talking about this project and trying to find a way to balance the needs of the owner as well as the residents. So I stand in strong support of the appeals, would ask my colleagues to support me today in this item, and appreciate those colleagues who have already supported me in the Plum Committee. This is, again, a beautiful area, and one in which I think this subdivision, the 4 homes, will fit within the neighborhood that's there and be able to have us move ahead. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just be very brief and say, first of all, I want to commend Ms. Gruhl and her staff. I know how hard you have worked on this and how much you tried to get the parties to yes here. And you got very, very, very close, one house away from yes. And I think that's a real testament to your efforts. And I also want to thank Mr. Reyes, who led us at the Plum Committee through a couple hearings on this, which were long, extensive. We heard public comment at both of those hearings, and we got, I think, very good advice from our city attorney and from the city staff. I used to represent Studio City, now I represent the area of LA adjacent to it. I know this area well. It is just as Ms. Gruhl described it. It is a rather unique single-family residential neighborhood, and it should stay that way, and it deserves every protection we can lawfully give it. I was pleased to vote for Mr. Reyes's motion in committee, and I will vote for it again here.
Ms. Misikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. During the public testimony, it was stated that legally we can't do this. So during the public testimony and as discussion began, I went over and talked to the city attorney and asked the question, and they said that the city attorney indicated that, and the deputy advisory agency indicated that, in fact, we can if we make the findings, as was indicated. And the findings as to why one lesser lot does make sense in addressing the issues of the public safety issue and the potential of flooding that was testified to at the many public hearings, is that with one less lot, the houses themselves can be more generous in their setbacks and more generous in staying away from the area that does have potential flooding, or does have the potential for flooding, as testified to in the public hearings by the neighbors. So in fact, the finding has been made and alludes to that specifically, but I just wanted to rise and say that I think because the statement had been made publicly, it was appropriate to get up and publicly say that the council did have that information, did understand that information, and in fact, in discussing it with our legal staff and our planning staff, that finding was able to be justified under that principle. So I think that that satisfied my concern when the statement was made publicly, and I think it's appropriate that the record reflect that in my support for this action as recommended by the Plum Committee and the council member of the district.
Thank you, Ms. Misikowski. Are the members wishing to be heard on item number 1? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Let me briefly recognize Mr. Labange for an introduction.
Thank you, members in the audience today. We have with us the former president of the John Marshall High School student body, Ron Taylor. Stand up, Ron. Give a big hand to Ron. He comes from the greatest family, the Taylor family. His father, James Taylor, was the great superintendent, almost the superintendent for Los Angeles Unified School District. Still walks, lives on Ames, right down the street from where Sam Cooke used to live. God bless the Taylor family. Welcome.
Stacy, want to know.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item number 15, called special by Councilmember Labange.
Mr. Labange, item 15.
Stacy, want to know if other.
Thank you very much, members. This is an item I just wanted to, as we start the new year, it's a new bikeway built on the Chandler right-of-way between the City of Los Angeles, City of Burbank. This goes into the gateway to the Valley Transit System, which is being built across the busway, the Great San Fernando Valley, all the way to Canoga Park, where there's going to be enough parking, thanks to Councilman Zine, at the end of the line. But this bikeway will connect from North Hollywood through to the City of Burbank and to San Fernando Road and provide great access. So I just wanted to call to the attention the importance of the component of bicycling in this element of transportation, both for recreation, for health, and for commuting, and ask for an aye vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Thank you for your leadership on this. Just as a side note, I've been informed that DOT wanted one little technical change on it, which would still direct them to maintain the Los Angeles portion of the new bike path, and then it says as they maintain all other bike paths in the city. There's some that Rec and Parks maintains. They just want to make sure that's not a new responsibility for all of them. Okay, so if we can just strike the as they maintain all other bike paths in the city. And this is great, and congratulations, Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Without objection, we'll consider this item as amended. Other members wishing to be heard on this item? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 24 was called special by Councilmember Mizikowski.
Ms. Mizikowski.
President, as I indicated, I think there was a request to speak, and I would like to move a 5-minute public hearing on this matter.
Sure. Item 24 now before us, and the council calls forward Nico and Theo Milanopoulos and Gabriel Buona.
Thank you. We are Nico and Theo Milanopoulos. We are 17 years old and co-founders of Kids Voice LA. We come before you today to beg this council to support the council resolution before you for the passage of the Assault Weapons Ban and Law Enforcement Protection Act of 2003, which includes U.S. House of Representatives Bill 2038 and the U.S. Senate Bill 1431. As you know, the current federal law that has banned the sale of assault weapons throughout our country for the past 10 years is set to expire in less than a year. These proposals before the U.S. Congress will not only renew the ban, but they would also strengthen it.
We first learned that the majority leaders in the U.S. Congress were stalling the passage of the bills while we were serving as congressional pages last summer on the floor of the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. And we were told by the bill's author, Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy, that we must do all that we can in our communities to pressure federal legislators into renewing the ban. That is why we asked you to create this council resolution last October. Today, we present you with a petition which has been signed by more than 150 of your constituents in support of the assault weapons ban. We hope to gather even more signatures, including your own, in support of the assault weapons ban, and to present the petitions to legislators during the congressional hearings in Washington, D.C. this summer. The need to pass these proposals is clear. There is no need in a civilized society for assault weapons. They were developed by the Nazi government under Adolf Hitler and designed to kill as many people as possible in the shortest time possible. These were the weapons that were used to kill children in a Stockton schoolyard a few years ago. Assault weapons were used by bank robbers in the North Hollywood shootout. Assault weapons were used by teenagers in the Columbine massacre. And just last year, an assault weapon was used to kill innocent victims and to terrorize neighborhoods in the D.C. sniper shootings.
We are especially grateful to Councilmember Weiss and Councilmember Villaraigosa for their continuing leaderships on this important gun issue. Councilwoman Mistakowski, Councilmember Parks, and Councilmember Reyes, thank you for your support in the Public Safety Committee. As you know, 1 out of 5 law enforcement officers slain in the line of duty between 1998 to 2001 was killed by an assault weapon, according to FBI data.
We know that this council took leadership in banning the .50 caliber assault weapons last June. Now we are asking you to lend your voice once again to this important issue which affects our nation. Imagine returning to the old days when just about anyone, including potential terrorists, could go into any gun store and legally purchase an assault weapon. Please vote in favor of the council resolution supporting these federal bills that will permanently keep these deadly assault weapons off of our streets across America.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Gabriel Buelna.
Mr. President, City Council, I'm here on behalf of the Executive Director of Proyecto Pastoral at Dolores Mission, and I'm here to support my Councilman Antonio Villaraigosa, and the City Council in support of the resolution banning assault weapons. There's 3 issues that I want to touch on. In the Dolores Mission area, as Proyecto, we have 5 programs: a homeless shelter, after-school program, alternative school, leadership, and daycare. Within Dolores Mission and Dolores Mission School, I come from the generation where earthquake drills, nuclear drills, in many of our communities in Boyle Heights, we have to do gunshot drills. Youth and children, seeing them drop to the ground and preparing themselves for for the danger of getting shot, grabs your heart. Recently, my daughter started kindergarten, and I decided to put her at Dolores Mission Kindergarten so she'd be close to me. One day, she came home and she said, "Habían muchos balazos." There were many gunshots, y vino la policía. The police came. My wife and I looked at each other and said, "Oh my God, what exactly is happening? Where do we put our child in kindergarten?" I'm proud and have maintained my daughter at Dolores Mission Kindergarten because it is an excellent school. But to see the children day after day going through these drills grabs your heart. One of the programs that we started at Proyecto Pastoral was the Community Safety Project, which is no longer a pilot project, but is supported by my council member and the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. When Stephanie Reigosa was murdered by an assault weapon earlier in 2001. I urge you to support a resolution to ban assault weapons. They do nothing but kill innocent children and injure the souls of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes public comment for this item. Chair recognizes Ms. Misakowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciated the speakers who came down and took the time today to testify. I think they eloquently indicated why Public Safety Committee did support this and how and why it's so important. It's rather incredible that when the federal government passed the first assault weapons ban, that they put a sunset clause on it and said we're only going to do this for 10 years. What were they thinking? What did they think was going to change 10 years later after we had accomplished a major goal with a lot of opposition from the NRA and others? Assault weapons really are not the right to bear arms. Assault weapons just have no sense and no meaning, I think, in our society today. So I think the effort here to really say that this weapons ban and law enforcement definitions in the Protection Act not only should be passed, it should be passed permanently. There is no time limit on assault weapons. They should be gone. They should be gone in terms of the sale. They should be gone in terms of ownership. They don't belong in a civilized society. And I was pleased to have this come forward committee, and pleased today that we had the support for it, both demonstrated in committee and today, and asked the council for a prompt and unanimous action.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was very pleased to co-present this motion with one of our states and indeed one of our country's leaders in terms of having a strong legislative record of accomplishment in this regard, Mr. Villaraigosa. It's a very, very significant step that we're asking Congress to take. And Ms. Misikowski, just to answer your question a few minutes ago about what was Congress thinking 10 years ago, this was all they could do. This was a matter that passed literally, it was either by 1 or 2 votes. It might have even passed, if I recall correctly, by the vote of the Vice President in the chair of the Senate. I'm not sure. But it was that razor thin. The only way they got it out was by putting in a 10-year sunset clause. And right now, the majority in Congress wants the United States public to forget that this thing is going to die this year. They want it to die out of sight and out of mind. And that's why it is really important for us to take this action here. Hopefully other cities will take action in other city halls throughout the country to let Congress know that we are not going to let this die without a fight, and we are certainly not going to let it die quietly. So I appreciate your support for this resolution today.
Ms. Han.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am very proud to stand today in support of this resolution to extend this ban on assault weapons. And what I particularly appreciate about what's in front of Congress is also the expansion of the kinds of weapons that will be included in this ban on assault weapons. And as Councilwoman Misikowski said, these assault weapons have absolutely no place in our society. They have no place on our streets. And I'm particularly proud of Theo and Nico, who, since I've been a councilwoman here, every time I see them walking the halls of City Hall, I know that what they're doing is using their influence, using their intelligence, using everything that they have to lobby against having guns on our streets. And their mother, who is here today, must be extremely proud of her sons to know that what a great legacy. They may be young, but they certainly, like I said, when I see them, I know that they're working to get guns off our streets, and I'm particularly pleased that you're here today to encourage us to do the same thing. And again, just rewatched Bowling for Columbine, which again has such a strong message about the violence, particularly in America, as compared to so many other countries in this world. And if there's one way we can end the violence, if there's one way we can save lives, I really do believe it's supporting this resolution that will permanently ban assault weapons from America. And I think that's the right thing for us to do. We've had more shootings. Even though our crime rate has gone down in Los Angeles, I'm particularly disappointed that in certain divisions of our LAPD we've had more shootings and more murders, more senseless murders because of guns. So thank you, colleagues, for standing up, and hopefully other cities across our country will take our lead and support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Han. Mr. Villaraigosa.
I too would like to thank Theo, Nico, Gabriel, all of the people who've come today in support of this measure. I'd also like to thank Councilmember Weiss for his leadership here on the council on this issue. I dare say, members, as we talk about public safety over the last few months, my time on the council, this doesn't cost us any money. What this does, and yet, despite the fact that it doesn't cost us any money, it goes a long way to making the streets of Los Angeles and California, and indeed the nation, safer as a result of this legislation. It does boggle the mind, as Cindy Misikowski asked, why the Senate and the Congress would not pass a reauthorization bill like this. The time is now to extend this very important legislation. In addition, though, to extending the current bill, what this would do is address some of the loopholes in the previous bill. The bill, as put forth by Senator Lautenberg, will clarify the definition of the term assault weapon to encompass any semi-automatic rifle, shotgun, or pistol that can accept a detachable magazine and includes features such as a pistol grip, a fore-end grip, or a collapsible stock. The bill also bans conversion part kits and regulate grandfather assault weapons and enhances the tracing of these weapons. This is a very important measure that our Congress must and should pass and that the President of the United States must sign. It'll go a long way to making the streets of our nation safer. There should be, I repeat, there should be no role for a weapon of this kind on the streets of America or anywhere in the world. They should be reserved for the military theater, and that's why we support this ordinance, or this measure.
Thank you. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a technical question and some other comments. In the motion, it calls, relates to shotguns which can accept a detachable magazine. And I'd like some clarification. I've never seen a shotgun that has a detachable magazine. It all is internal. I just wanted to get a point of clarification on that, and I don't know who would be equipped to answer that question. But it is in the comments from the Public Safety Committee.
Is a member of the, either the CLA or the Police Department here to answer that question?
The question I have is regarding the shotgun with a detachable magazine, and I've never seen a shotgun with a detachable magazine, and I wanted a clarification on that particular description in the report.
We can hold
I just
this-
wanted to make sure that what we're going to be doing is taking action to get something that is manufactured.
Madam
Yes, Mr. Villaraigosa?
President, so as not to confuse the matter, my understanding of this language, it's an attempt to very broadly address the possible uses. I'm not suggesting, I don't think anyone is, that these weapons have been used in the past, but the intent is to make sure that they're not used in the future, and that's why they limit them in the way that they do, so that no weapon could be used as an automatic or a semi-automatic weapon in this way.
Okay, I was just curious if it's currently manufactured, or if we're going to ban something that's not manufactured, or if we're going to create an idea to manufacture something that someone never thought about.
Well,
I know they have automatic weapons, et cetera, but I've never seen a shotgun with a detachable magazine. That
Just
was
from
my
the
question.
chair, I know one of the reasons the definition needs to be constantly expanded is because weaponry is constantly changed. And when things are banned, they developed some new kits and some new capability to do new things with old weapons. And I think this is meant to broadly define that, to preclude that.
Okay. It sounds logical. I just want to make sure it's
Mr.
legal in what we're trying
Mr.
to
Deaton?
achieve with this particular
I just
position we're
talked to,
taking. And if I could hold my time, because I have a couple other comments I want to make on this also.
I was just talking to Officer Curry, and he indicated that actually there are these Tommy gun type things with shotguns that you can actually attach, and he says he has seen them and they actually exist.
They do exist, okay. As long as they exist, I have no problem banning it. I just wanted to make sure it existed.
I have never seen one, but
I've seen a lot of weapons in my career, but never that type. Anyway, thank you for the clarification. I heard a man mention Boyle Heights. I visited Boyle Heights not too long ago, and I observed in Boyle Heights apartments, their windows covered with plywood. And I asked, why are the windows covered with plywood? It was because of the gunfire that takes place, so people will be protected in their bedrooms and their residence. And that's why I thought they were abandoned buildings, but it's just part of the scenery where people have to protect themselves with that, which I thought was a very sad commentary on violence in our society. The attacks on police officers, I know when I became a police officer along with Officer Smith and then Officer Parks many, many years ago, officers had .38 caliber weapon. And we had some officers killed over the years, and we went to semi-automatic 9mm, and now they're up to 45 caliber weapons. So clearly the level of violence against police officers have escalated, and we know what happened in the North Hollywood shootout, and I was at that scene where we had to go to a gun store, which is no longer in business, to get weapons so we could confront the people who were terrorizing the bank and the community. The 50 caliber, I know that we took action when now Assemblyman, former Councilmember Marco D. Thomas was here, and the SWAT team brought in a 50 caliber weapon. And I understand people's right to have a weapon for their protection of their residence, their family, their business, but I don't know why you need a 50 caliber weapon or other type of assault weapon to protect yourself and your family. And when I was challenged by members of the gun favoring public, why would I take action against the 50 caliber? They use it for target shooting, and my response was they have to lower the target sights if they need a 50 caliber to fire against the target. We clearly have a violent society. Clearly, a movie that I recently saw, Last Samurai, and anyone who's seen that movie sees the violence and how it's escalated from bows and arrows to Gatling guns, where all you do is simply kill more people in a shorter period of time. And we just look at the city of Los Angeles, while our crime statistics are down, last year we had a record number of police officers shot at in their cars on patrol. And that trend sadly continues in certain parts of the city. So I support this, and I think it's long time in coming. And I hope that the people of our society will realize to maintain a civilized society, you have to regulate the types of weapons that people use. And I am an advocate of the Second Amendment. I'm also a strong supporter of people's personal rights and privileges. I think that if you want to have a weapon in your house or at your business, you have the right to do that. And I think that right has to be guaranteed and maintained. I know people who've been victimized, and after they've been victimized, they go purchase a weapon for their personal protection. I will not change my position on that, but I think that weapon has to be something reasonable, and if you choose to do that, you should have the right in our society to do that, to protect yourself and your family. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much. I stand to support this effort here and thank my colleagues for their passion. I also want to thank Senator Dianne Feinstein, who stood across the street with our Chief of Police, Bill Bratton, with our Sheriff, Lee Baca, and talk of the importance of this measure. It's truly important that we continue this. And there's a lot of reasons, and it is a different country, Dennis, out there a little bit in some ways. But as you know, from your first-hand experience of the 3 decades of service to the people of Los Angeles, these are tools of great destruction. They're not guns. They're not hunting rifles. They're guns that destroy and destroy lives tremendously. I think the eloquent public testimony that took place there from Dolores Mission, as well as from the young men and their lovely mother who so often carry the banner, which is so important, but of Dolores Mission, of the children, which could be echoed in many neighborhoods throughout the city, is truly important. I hope we're able to see the light. I'm talking about this country, to see the light that these types of guns have no business at all in the hands of anyone. So I want to thank my colleagues, Mr. Weiss and Antonio. I want to thank you for your passion always in this measure. Thank you.
That concludes those who want to speak on this matter. The item is now before us. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Thank you. We will send that forthwith to the mayor. Thank you very much. Next item.
Item number 25 was called special by Councilmember Padilla, and there are 2 reports on the file.
Let me recognize Mr. Padilla at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Clerk. I believe we can move both committee reports since they don't conflict. And colleagues, just wanted to, I called this item special to highlight it once again. It's a matter that's been before us before, and I hope will be before us again. We have an Education Neighborhoods Committee report recommending approval of the original motion, and a Budget Committee report following up on how we can get monies from other jurisdictions for fingerprinting services. But the crux and the core of my original motion is to facilitate and encourage the police department to do more specifically in the area of child fingerprinting. And I believe there's some representatives from the department here. I'd like to ask them to come forward and give us a brief update as to what's been done up until now. But what's before us today and I ask for your support, is for the department to continue to move forward with a specific plan and proposal to do no less than 2 fingerprinting events per year per police division throughout the city of Los Angeles. At minimum, 1 on-site, a community-friendly event that encourages families to come to the police station and parents to bring their children to get fingerprinted, get photographed, and have that file. And at minimum, 1 off-site event where, in each and every community, in each and every council district, and each police division, there's a big community event where people are already gathered and congregated, again, capturing an audience for the purposes of fingerprinting and photographing children. I'd like the department to begin with a brief comment on, again, using these fingerprints and photographs as a tool in the event of a crime, a missing child, some other circumstance. Number 1, and number 2, what's been done already in terms of improving and expanding our fingerprinting and photograph services. And just for clarification, what's before us today also requests a 60-day report back, as we hope to someday soon have a formal process and program in place for ongoing fingerprinting and photographing of children. Please.
Good morning, Lieutenant Ruben Sanchez, Acting Commanding Officer of Juvenile Division. Yes, indeed. In November, the department adopted a policy whereby, as mentioned, each geographic area was required to 3 events a year, 1 within the station and 2 at their discretion during the course of the year to have this fingerprinting done. Now, obviously, the problem was financing for such a system, and especially when it comes to expanding the system. Now, what we did is we have liaison with the LA Unified School District. They have come up with a prototype of a pamphlet that can be distributed to each individual student that captures pertinent information in the case of a child missing or being abducted. It captures information such as blood type, medications that they use, dental records, DNA samples from their hair, obviously their fingerprints. And this prototype is still in the workings. They're looking for funding. Now, if the LAUSD, I don't think anybody from the LAUSD is here right now, but if the LAUSD can come up with a funding source for this, I think that will go a long ways in helping us expand the program and ensure that as many children as possible receive this kind of information that can then be stored at their discretion.
Are those discussions with LAUSD still ongoing?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. That right now, I'm sorry, I don't have more to hand out. This is just a prototype that we have. But as of this moment, that's about our latest update. Since September, we have done citywide approximately 500 fingerprinting. With the holidays and whatnot, there have been some problems getting more kids at this point. But approximately 500 kids have been fingerprinted since September.
Okay. And again, just a brief comment on using these fingerprints and photographs as a tool.
Right, exactly. The main concern that we can determine on the behalf of parents is that they're concerned about privacy issues, and rightfully so. Our goal is to make sure that we establish a comfort level with them so that they understand that when they capture these records, when they capture this information, they take it with them. They can throw it in the safe. We have no other concern other than to try and get as many kids fingerprinted as possible. Now, it's still a difficult task sometimes in certain portions of the city.
But in the event of an incident and a parent has this information available, is it a big help? Is it not a big help in helping retrieve a child or solve a case?
Well, it's a tremendous help because it'll help us absolutely determine the identification of a child who may have been abducted or even worse.
That's what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So colleagues, again, clearly this is something that is still in progress. I'm glad to see there's already been significant progress made since this item was back last before us, but in 60 days or so, we'll get an update from committee, hopefully more formalized, near finality of a specific program and a wonderful partnership with the school district. Anything, colleagues, we can do to keep our children safe, anything we can do to make our neighborhoods more safe, we ought to get behind. This is clearly one of those initiatives. So thank you, Department, for your work, and colleagues, I ask you for your support.
Thank you. Let me recognize Councilmember Hahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I certainly rise to support this effort. Certainly in education neighborhoods, we discuss this, and it would have been nice to have somebody from the LA Unified School District here and the school police, because apparently they were also working on coming up with a cheaper method that they felt like the printing would not be all that expensive. Have they come back to you with that cost analysis?
No, they haven't, but we have discovered that there is a private company that does something very similar to what the LAUSD is proposing, and they obtained sponsorship, in this case from Target, to assist with the funding. What we can gather is that it looks like...
Could you hold my time, please?
That if, depending upon the amount of brochures that we obtain, we can get the cost at approximately a negotiable price of about 23 cents a pamphlet. Okay, now when you carry that out to the number of students, it's a fairly reasonable cost, I think.
Well, I guess what I would say is I'm a little uncomfortable with the suggestion that came from public safety that we look to charge fees for those children who may not live within the city of Los Angeles who attend our schools. I think that would be, in my opinion, problematic, complicated. That might cause children to feel uncomfortable that they would have to show where they live before they got fingerprinted, and then their family would be sent a bill and other families wouldn't be. So I'm not comfortable with that, colleagues, and I hope that proposal doesn't go through. I know we're always looking to make sure we cover our costs, but I think LAPD with LA Unified School Police can certainly come to a process and a program that will work to quickly begin implementing fingerprinting all the children that attend schools in Los Angeles Unified School District. I've just got to say here, I think it's still taking too long. I think it's taken too long. I don't think you've shown great progress, to be honest with you. Great progress to me would be that you finally have what it's going to take and we begin implementing. We wanted to have this being implemented at the beginning of the school year, which was September. So I don't think there's been great progress. I think you ought to make this a priority, as you said. This really will help in terms of ultimately, if a child is abducted or worse. So come on. Let's make this happen. Come back with a cost. I know we've asked you to come back in 60 days. I even think that's too long. Make this work. I think the cost is well going to be worth it. Let's work with the school district. Let's work. Let's not. But I'm not comfortable with giving kids, having kids have to show their residency, and then charging kids that don't live in the city of Los. These kids are all our kids. It's for children, and ultimately it will help the police solve crime. So let's move quickly on this.
Okay, ma'am.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to my colleagues who have pushed this issue forward. I think it is critically important in any way that we can help protect our children and to work with our families who oftentimes are frightened by when they drop their kid off at school. They're frightened when their kid goes to the mall by themselves, that they don't feel that there's any kind of safety net, and I think this would allow them to do that. And I also think that when you talk about resources and looking at with the school district, that many of us around this horseshoe would be more than willing to look at helping the school district identify some funds from private sector. I think that there'd be more than enough entities out there that would say, this is a good public relations issue for us, this is a good safety issue, and be able to support that. So I think we're suggesting to you to keep keep all of us in the loop on if there are any bumps in the road as you're working with the school district, because this is important to us and important to my colleague, Mr. Padilla, who introduced the motion, that I think all of us would put our heads together to make this happen, to see if there might be corporate sponsorships or other ways in which to make this a reality, because every day we don't have this kind of resource, I think it is of interest to our families that we protect them. So you have a lot of support around this table and a lot of anxious council members who want to see this moving. And so if we could
understand.
start it today or tomorrow, we'd be there. So don't wait 60 days to come back and say to us, we still don't have any money. Come to us and say, the school district needs our help, and let's see how we can do it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
I too, there are many items we discuss and we talk about quality of life. And every time I go out to a community meeting, and I have this angst because folks are saying we need more police, and my children are traveling from their apartment to school, and they have to traverse these homeless encampments. They have to go through a place where people are hanging out under the bridges, and they have to go to work, so their kids are alone. And so anything we can do to give a level of security for our children, I just want to say thank you for that. I want to thank my colleagues who brought this to the floor. But again, when we are in an environment where for every one officer, I believe we have, 900 or 1,000 gang members? Is that the ratio that's been quoted? I mean, we right now need to do everything we can as a city to protect our children. And we do not have the personnel. Our men and women in blue are brave. They're out there giving everything they have to protect the city. But we need to go beyond that in every aspect of our abilities to protect our children, and this is a very important one. I would hope that when we do these announcements, that we do them in different languages, that we reach networks that are not a traditional or conventional networking, but we work with the churches, we work with the support systems that you find in different cultures in the Chinatown area, Koreatown, and the Latino communities. Word of mouth, the palabra is very significant how you communicate. So we need to get beyond what we normally do when we're dealing with this outreach. Let people know that it's for their children. So I want to just thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
I turned off my phone.
I think the voluntary fingerprinting program is phenomenal. I had some events when I was in the State Assembly, and there in the community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, we had a tremendous turnout. The parents were very pleased. They got a true comfort of knowing that the public safety for their children and their family was advanced by that event. But one of the things that I want to invite you to do is to please let us know how or what kind of collaboration you need in order to put these events on. And we need to know how to approach the school districts. We need to know how to approach private industry. We need to know how to approach community organizations on how they can collaborate to make this successful. We need to continue this program. And the reason why I say that is because we can no longer look at this as something, we're doing okay for now. Well, 3 years ago, we were probably doing fine on many things that we were doing that were adjunct to our core responsibilities. And now we're having to look at every single thing and looking at where we can pinch and skimp and pull back. And this is an area where we cannot afford to pull back. This is a concept that is relatively new, but at the same time, that's something that's extremely beneficial and important. So what I ask of you is that you blueprint for us what the costs are, where we can get collaboration, how we can actually get funds. You don't even need to tell us where to get the funds. We'll figure out where to get the funds, whether it's private industry, whether it's school districts or other organizations that collaborate with us, because we need to continue this program. And the budget situation for the city is only getting worse by the day and by the month and by the year. So this is something that we need as a blueprint in the future, so that when we have these events, we make sure that the impact to the city's general fund is minimized, and that we do have these events grow and successful, and we have as many participants as possible, because this is something that's at the core of giving comfort and safety, true comfort and safety to the families of our communities. So thank you very much for the work that you do, and we look forward to that blueprint.
Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
acting commander of...
Commanding Officer of Juvenile Division.
Used to work at Northeast?
Used to work at Northeast.
So you're used to be a Centurion?
Yes, I did.
That's right, a very good Centurion, a football team. I was his coach, and he did a good job. But no, well, I want to accent what Janice Hahn was talking about. I think she made a good point. I believe because she covers the harbor area and the Harbor Gateway and the southern part of Los Angeles. Northeast is right next to Glendale, and right there's Pasadena, and up the road is Burbank. Children come all over. You have a lot of programs in the Griffith Park that children from all over the city come, or all over the county. So I don't think we should exclude ourselves from people from other cities. Los Angeles, and that's what makes our city so great. We're able to try to help as many people, but we don't ask what city they're from. And especially in areas and neighborhoods that are adjacent to other cities, like in the area of Northeast where we worked together so many years ago, like in the southern part of the city, in the harbor area, in the South Bay. I think it's very important for Los Angeles to have that, to go the extra step. And the other thing I would like to ask you, I'd like you to check with the Volunteers Bureau of the Mayor's office. And maybe there's an executive or an administrative chief or someone who's since retired, or just a pure dedicated volunteer who could help Juvenile Division articulate and move this to completion, move it to success. And I think there are people out there in the sound of my voice, if I could borrow a radio term, that if they would call the City Hall, 485-2121, area code 213, or 311 to one call to City Hall. 311 says it all, and ask for the Volunteer Bureau and see if they could help Juvenile Division, because I think you want to see this done, and I think it makes sense, and I know it's been a long time coming, a lot of frustration, but I think it's something we should have done, and I do want to just really articulate the point. I don't think we should look anywhere different from a child from whether they come from, because sometimes a child who's in Griffith Park, which is 4,212 acres, is lost, but they may be from San Dimas. And if you have a little fair in the zoo parking lot and you're doing fingerprinting on a nice Saturday afternoon in the spring, and the child from San Dimas comes, and well, we should treat them just the same as a child from Silver Lake. So I just want to make that point to you. I think it's real important. I thank you, and I thank the committee for their work, and onward and upward, and get back here soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Lieutenant Acting Commander. Is he on vacation, or is he taking over the helm? She?
Sharon Buck's on vacation.
Oh, she is?
Yes.
Okay. Tobacco money. I don't know if it's appropriate, since we have a settlement from the tobacco industry, if that can be tapped into. And I know that in my years at Valley Traffic, we used to reach out to the insurance companies, the beverage industry, and they would oftentimes fund these programs with a little advertisement from them on the brochure. So I don't know if that's been approached, but it seems that the problem is funding to get this moving. And if you can find that funding through the private sector, whether it be the tobacco funds that we receive, that's part of education. This is education as far as keeping the children safe in the event of a tragedy, abduction or loss, whatever the case may be. I would suggest searching those other avenues. I know that when we were doing DUI enforcement, we went to the beverage industry and they gave us tremendous money for brochures that we would pass out. And they were very supportive of the designated driver program, and that was all paid for by the industry itself. So just a suggestion, the insurance companies, the medical field, we've got some major medical corporations here that may be willing, because if you're looking at 23 cents and it's divided with a couple of the sponsors, the Auto Club's always been tremendous in help when we want to do something with traffic safety, and they would print those brochures with their little logo on it. So I think there's some opportunities there to get something moving off the ground, and with the combined resources. And I know that when this was in neighborhoods and schools, the school district was presented. I think that was the brochure that the school district came up with, if I'm not mistaken, the one that you showed.
That's correct, yes.
And I know that they're heavily involved in that process, but the joining together of the two departments for the benefit of the children, a tremendous asset to the parents. And we know what's happening when a child disappears, whether it's lost or abduction. In the Amber Alert, we become very sophisticated in that, but the parent needs to have that reassurance. And I know many times on lost children, you ask the parent for a recent photo, and they don't have a recent photo. They don't have anything. You know, here's a photo of the child when he was 5 years old, or they've got the videotape, and that really doesn't work for what the officers need to do their investigation. So I would just suggest maybe trying some of those other resources and see if the tobacco money that we get that's used for education, if some of that money can be utilized for this process, which would fall in that broad category of education, along with the other suggestions I have for you. And I wish you success on this project. And I know the frustration of Councilmember Hahn is oftentimes we discuss these issues, and then months later we're still discussing it, and then we want to know why can't we get it done. So, especially out of the Committee of Neighborhoods and Schools, where we got that whip, keep on whipping done to get things done quickly. So we don't want to whip you, Lieutenant. You get whipped enough over there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zion. Other members wishing to be heard? If not, then Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Thank you very much. That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, just to let council know, item number 61 has been adopted. However, there is a technical change that needs to be made to add an account number to that.
Do we need to reconsider that item?
If council wishes, yes, it could be reconsidered to add that account number.
Okay. Mr. Cardenas moves reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Okay. We now have a technical amending motion on item 61 without objection. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, item number 66, called special by Councilmember Miskowski.
Ms. Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is an item that has been much discussed recently just before we left, and in fact, yesterday, I think partly in concurrence with some of the ideas suggested in this motion, the mayor issued a executive directive for the new year, executive directive number M01, and it's actually on our desk today, where the mayor has directed the commissioners that to all commissioners, both on city, mayor, and council-controlled departments, as well as the proprietary departments, that all the general managers and heads of department are now directed to maintain contract and contractor evaluation processes that do not utilize commission members in the selection of who should get contracts, who and how evaluation of responses to RFPs come forward. And I applaud the mayor. I think this is a very, very good and bold step, and one that's appropriate. It's consistent with the motion. It doesn't negate the need for the motion. It doesn't need to negate what the motion asks for, which are considerations of hearings in front of Audit and Efficiency Committee, in front of Commerce, Energy, and Natural Resources, as it relates to issues that were raised in the Controller's audit that was released in early December. The motion asks for a number of things to be considered, asks for the city attorney, the ethics commission, and the other city departments to be involved in looking at where and if and how we should regulate commissioner activity in the city, as there are perceptions and appearances and problems which may being not addressed have led to certain considerations today, certain appearances today, and certain time, I think, to look at reevaluating how business has been done in the city, how business has been done in the city by some of our very stalwart commissioners, but where that leads to problems and perceptions that I think we ought to take the time to correct. So particularly as it relates to the mayor's directive, I applaud that, but I think it's still appropriate to hold our hearings and to codify and make city ordinances as it affects to commissioners and how one commission or commissioner ought to conduct themselves as it looks to contracts and awarding contracts and RFP consideration. And that is that no commissioner should be involved in the selection of who gets a contract. After a contract has been selected, after a process and a standard and a policy and a procedure has been put forward as to how evaluation occurs by staff, by outside administration to recommend a choice, then the commissioners have every right to be involved, to choose, to select, to question staff, but they ought not to be involved prior to that. Similarly, the motion asks for consideration and hearings to be held as to commissioners' involvement in fundraising activities, commissioners' involvement in lobbying activities. I think it's, again, a start of a new year, a start of a new day that I think it's appropriate to send this to committee, Let's have those public hearings, those public debates, the input from the agencies that are asked from here, the CAO, the CLA, the Ethics Commission, and I would like to have commissioners come forward and talk to us about some of the suggestions they may have in terms of, again, helping to create not only in reality, but the appearance of good government, of reviewing our ordinances as they apply to commissioners, to really put forward the best city commissioner form of government that we can, revise the rules, look at things that make sense, and see what comes out of these hearings and these processes. But so I ask that we send this on to committee, that our committee chairs perhaps consider holding joint hearings, hopefully within the next 6 weeks or so, to start really getting the ball rolling on bringing forward some, I think, much needed changes, much needed code reviews as to what and how commissioners in this city do business, so that we can rely on what we have built with our charter, reaffirmed in the charter reform, and that is a very strong commission citizen involvement in our city. We have a vast, great number of citizens who participate in our commissions in their regular life. We want to maintain that and truly maintain it at a level where the luster and the importance and the value of those citizens as citizen assistance in our government make a lot of sense, and not necessarily that it's citizens who are involved in fundraising, in lobbying, and in kinds of things which I think have led to an appearance of problems that we need to correct and review and change at this time. So I ask for an aye vote to send this to committee, and let's move forward with some of the ideas recommended in here after those hearings are conducted.
Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Garcetti seconds. Mrs. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President, and stand in support of the motion that Cindy and I introduced on the 19th of December on a couple of issues. One, as she mentioned, was relative to commissioners being involved in the decision-making process relative to the public contracting. And I think, as Cindy mentioned, applaud the mayor and his executive directive yesterday, which allows us to immediately take place that we have the commissioners only involved at the end game there and reviewing those contracts. I think that is really critical, and I think that the most important thing is that we demonstrate to the public that the contracting process, that the actions of the commissions are done in an open and ethical manner, and that we codify the mayor's executive directive yesterday as well, and work with the city attorney on how we can do that in our charter to ensure that in the future we have the public understanding what the rules of the game are. And this is the second audit actually that has discussed contracting procedures. One was done with the Port of Los Angeles that I know Ms. Hahn is familiar with, and how decisions are made there on the contracting with the port. So I think that there's enough out there where people are concerned about how we do business. And we felt that it was important in this motion to begin to have that discussion, and I support that we go to committee and have further discussion as well on the other items that were in our motion relative to the political fundraising side as well. And we'll look to that public hearing. Many of you know we've had several conversations and dialogue and debate here on ethics reform, and I hear so often from the public they have a very cynical view of how we operate here. We need to give them the confidence that decisions are being made in that open and ethical manner. So I stand in support of our motion. I think it is time for us to make our government more accountable and to make the public understand that we are making decisions that are going to be in the best interest of the city, and to do that sometimes perception makes people feel that we're not doing it in an open and ethical manner. So I think it's important for us to review those processes and look forward to working with the Ethics Commission and working for the City Attorney and Ms. Misikowski and the Commerce Committee, Mr. Cardenas as well, and our Audits Committee to review the audit and to review our policies on both the contracting procedures and political fundraising as well. So I similarly ask for an aye vote today.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you both to Councilmembers Misikowski and Councilmember Gruhl for your leadership on this. I think the world that we live in today is one that is very different than the one that we want to live in. Los Angeles is often praised as one of the probably 3 or 4 best cities in terms of our system of ethics, our system of fundraising that exists, but I think that we still have a long way to go. You've heard me say it once, and I'll continue to say it again, but I join with groups like Valley Vote and others who really see the only way out of this is to eventually figure out a way that we can have a system of full public financing, some sort of threshold where we have a number of small checks like the state of Arizona or Massachusetts or Vermont and Maine have done, like the state of California will be considering in a ballot initiative next year, but a way that we show that we have the ability to garner a certain level of support, and then we're given a full amount to run our campaigns so that we never have to go to anybody. I know for all of us it would be a great system that we would love to participate in. We wouldn't have to spend that time on the phone with big donors, but could actually get community members to give us $5 to show real support, and upon reaching a threshold we would be able to have all the money we need for a campaign. But in the place of an initiative for that, in place of moving to a system of full public financing, I think that it's incumbent upon us also to make sure the world that we live in has increasingly, and whenever we have the chance to, the look of propriety, that it has the feeling of as clean a system as it can be. And I don't fault anybody today for the world that we live in. It's a much better one than most political systems and most other cities. But I think this is a good road to go down to make sure that those areas in which I think many of us know that public service is a wonderful thing, it's how we live our own lives. For commissioners who give of their volunteer time to serve as well, I think it's an incredible thing. But we also see that there needs to be a system in which there's a combination of people who maybe are the folks who we would expect, leaders of business and industry, but also find out a system to bring other people into that commissionership service. People who might not have any money to give, people who might not go to fundraisers, but people who have a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience to add to our city commissions, and I think this is a step in that direction as well, and one which can maybe move concomitantly with that. So thanks again for your leadership on this. I fully support this and look forward to a way in which we can move towards a place in which money is something that we do once every 4 years and not something that pervades the system every month that we're here. Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Cindy, for your always doing the focus issues on issues such as this that brought us to the attention, but also for always reading everything, Cindy, and I mean that in the greatest compliment as we start out the first of the year. You absolutely read everything and find that one detail that's just so important to have. And Wendy, thank you for your leadership on this and your follow through as a former chairman of Audits Committee. You've really taken it far, much beyond. As I'm the former, she's taken it further than I have, and will continue to. But I also wanted to thank the mayor for his executive order. I think that's real important to lay it right out in the first of the year. And it's good at the first of the year a lot of times to do things because there's a new season, a new year, a new calendar, and it's real important. And as Mr. Garcetti spoke of, you know, and I go back a longer time period because of my service here, but you look at and my interest in history, the crises that we've failed the people on with individual administrations dating back to Shaw and beyond Shaw and through other periods of time, and that there have been criticisms of how elected officials have handled things. I think this will only strengthen it because I think it's real important that we always have that look when we go to see the people that we represent, that we're there because we love this city and love helping people, and we're not tainted by the problem that comes when people engage in political activity in the wrong way. I also do want to think it's real important. I had a conversation with our ethics director yesterday that we make sure that more information get out to people through our neighborhood councils and our associations on this process, so they know what it's about, so they have an understanding and a feel. We do have to raise money. We do have to use money to get a message out that we raise, but at the same time, we shouldn't have commissioners raising money. We should have engagement of commissioners in areas such as contracting. Ultimately, they make a decision because that commission will make a decision on an item, but they shouldn't be involved in selection with staff, because I think one thing that I do want to say about Los Angeles, we have a professional staff of general managers and assistant general managers and division chiefs that make recommendations. And I think the intimidation factor happens when a councilman gets involved with something when a council deputy gets involved in something, when a commissioner gets involved in something. So I think this will go for a long way to help improving that and look for more steps to come. Mr. President, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yes, members, I too want to thank Councilmember Miskowski and Gruhl and Reyes for bringing this matter to the council's attention. I believe that it's important for us to address this issue, especially the issue of contracting. I think the mayor's new directive is an important step in that direction, and certainly the council has the prerogative of codifying that. But I also want to say that in many ways, members, take a look at the ethics rules of city councils and municipalities around the country, and I dare say that this city has some of the toughest laws in the nation. I think we need to enforce those laws. I think we need to do everything possible to raise the sunshine, if you will, on government. But I'm hoping that as we discuss this matter in committee, we'll do that with the understanding that this city has actually gone a long way to making this probably the cleanest city anywhere in the nation.
Thank you very much. Other members wishing to be heard on item 66? Mr. Reyes.
Just as a, if we're going to be talking about commissioners and how we appoint, I think it's important that we also talk about who gets represented. I think it's important that we talk about where the commissioners come from and what areas are represented, overrepresented, underrepresented. I think that's an issue that speaks to how commissioners work with department heads to deliver services. And I know we're all caught up in a process where we're dealing with a political culture and how we appoint and how we work with individuals that hold these very important positions. But I just can't overlook the fact that we need to continue working towards that balance. And I recognize that the mayor has been trying to do that. He's been looking at that, and he's been trying to bring in people. We can see more folks who are basically in a position to articulate points of view that can enhance services in areas that are underserved. So I just want to put that on the table. I want to do this in the most sensitive way possible without offending anyone. But the fact is, we need to create that balance. If we were to map out where the folks come from, I think it'll tell a certain story. And I don't think that's a story we want to talk about when we are constantly emphasizing one city. So I just want to put that on the table to make sure that that element of who gets represented, geographic areas that should be at least heard, given that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please open the roll on the motion. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 76 was called special by Councilmember Weiss.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to, I'm rising, looking for my substitute motion, which is here. I want to rise, I want to thank everybody who's worked over the last day or two to resolve this issue, particularly Mr. Deaton, Ms. So, folks in the mayor's office, where are they? They're back here somewhere, Ms. Reyes, and Ms. Sample from my office. We've reached, I think, a win-win solution here, which we probably could have reached in a much procedurally easier way, but nonetheless, we have a resolution. It's before you as substitute motion 76A, and the bottom line on that will basically be to underscore what was always the council's intent to begin with, which is that we're not trying to in any way add to the unfreeze authority of any department here. And in fact, we'll have the departments report back within a week to the council to explain how they can get this work done with existing authority. That was always the intent. My motion, which I don't believe will be a controversial one this morning, would be for the council to override the veto message that has been presented to us and to pass item 76A, which is before you. And with that, I think we will accomplish everybody's goals here, and I appreciate the fact that everybody worked so hard and worked so well together to accomplish that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weiss. I have Ms. Mizikowski next, and colleagues, just as a clarification, this item will require a series of votes before final action. Ms. Mizikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did discuss this with Mr. Weiss and members. This sort of brings us right back to where we ended our session last year, which is, what are we going to do in terms of the budget crisis? And we still know we have a budget crisis. I think things got hopefully lightened a little bit by way of the action of the governor just before we left. But we still need to be looking at a tight budget, perhaps not filling positions, clearly not unfreezing positions that deserve not to be. But I think as Mr. Weiss's carefully crafted motion in overriding the veto allows us to, one, accept the funds from the federal government, and the state government, from the gas tax street improvement fund to actually do the job, and then have this street maintenance, street services people come back next week, and Bureau of Engineering as well, and start looking carefully at position by position, which one should be unfrozen, if any, which should be backfilled, because essentially this is what we were talking about, using and moving forward on those projects which do have funding, which have resources, but not necessarily filling them with new positions, but perhaps filling them with existing city positions so that come later this year or the early part of next year, as we still address the budget, we aren't top-heavy or loaded with positions that we really cannot afford anymore. So I think this motion crafts that, and I would support the motion with the override, as is mentioned, indicating that we are going to look very, very carefully at this with the CAO, with the CLA, with the mayor, to make sure that we are on the same track. And I applaud the caution that I think the mayor's veto tried to give us. But we need, and I think we can work it out together to make sure that this is not business like usual anymore. And we have to be aware of that with every motion, every appropriation, every action we take from here on out. So I think this one was carefully crafted in that manner, and that's why I will support the motion to override.
Okay. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I agree that this is a good substitute motion, and I will go on the record, though, however, and say I was not in favor of overriding the mayor's veto until this substitute motion was before us. And I think this is exactly the right thing to do, and I think what you have done is provided a win-win situation. Because I think in these tough times, as Councilwoman Mizikowski said, it is not business as usual. And while we certainly want these projects to go forward, I think it is our job, and it is fiscally responsible for us to not only just look at the possibility of filling these positions with current employees so that they are not subject to layoffs, but I think it's really important for us to take general funded positions and move them to specially funded position. I think that also puts a little bit of a relief on our general fund, even if it's only for 6 months, but I think that's what's important. So I am happy to say today I will vote to override the mayor's veto, but only because I think this is a prudent substitute motion before us. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Weiss, for a second time.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for your support, Ms. Hahn. Just so and then we just proceed to the vote, just to make it very clear, this is not a project that has general fund impact. I spoke this morning with Zev Yaroslavsky. I wish I could claim credit for coming up with this project, but Zev thought it up, he'd be embarrassed to say, literally it's probably 20 years ago. It's a much needed, long-awaited project on Benedict Canyon that links the valley and the west side. This is how people commute to and from their jobs, and it's a project that's literally been on the drawing boards for 20 years. It's a good project for the city of Los Angeles, not just because it's a good project, but because it does not have an impact on the city's general fund. The funding is coming from the county, courtesy of Zev, and from the state gas tax, and we're going to make sure with this substitute motion that the departments come in and ensure that the people who do the work, it's being done in the most prudent way possible. Ms.
Right,
Hahn,
just
did
a
you want to
point
say
of
something? Yeah.
clarification, what I meant by that is, isn't it, in fact, we are now going to take positions that are currently general funded and move them possibly to the special, so it does,
That's-
it has a positive impact on our general fund in
conceive-
that way for 6 months. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, very conceivably, it could even have positive impact.
That's what
But-
I'm saying.
But obviously, the worst thing to do would be to just reject the project altogether, to kiss off the state money. We can't do that. That's why we're
It has a
overriding.
positive impact on it.
Thank you.
All right, we have the motion before us relative to the mayor's veto. Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, Madam President, there are two votes required. The first vote would be to override the mayor's veto, and 10 votes are required on that.
All right, we have the first vote, which is to override. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That has been approved. And the
And
second
then
vote?
the second vote is for the substitute motion, 76A.
All right, we have 76A before us, which will get us a report back from Street Services. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is also approved. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, Madam President, council has motions for posting and referral.
All right, before we do the posting and referral, let me recognize Mr. Padilla.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you were about to mention, colleagues, under the new rules, we had public comment at the beginning of the meeting today. Since public comment was held, we have had a significant number of people join chambers and submit public comment cards on an item not on our agenda. So I would move that we reopen public comment to be able to hear from people who just joined us. And this is a matter actually within my district that they're going to speak to us on, I believe. But again, as a reminder, this is not something that's scheduled for action before us today.
Is there any objection to a reopening of the public hearing? Seeing none, we will reopen the public hearing, and let me set it for a 10-minute public hearing. There are a number of cards. I hope you can consolidate what you're speaking and be brief. Let me begin, and let me ask, I will call 4 or 5 people to come forward to the microphone at one time, just form a line so we can expedite the process. Dolores Shagan, Francisco Gutierrez, Sandra Vargas, and Blanca Ramirez. Would you like to come forward and testify at this time? To the center microphone.
Al micrófono, hacia el centro.
Are those people in the
¿Las
audience?
personas están en el público? ¿Se
I
fueron
believe
en el
they're coming
público que veo
forward.
que están pasando ahora?
Come forward to the center.
Pasen hacia el centro.
Please begin.
Empiecen, por favor.
Good afternoon to everybody
Buenas
here.
tardes.
We're here to
Estamos aquí
represent
para
the Mexicana
representar
Supermarket,
a Mexicana
which for the
Supermarket,
last
la
8
cual
months
por los
has been
últimos 8
trying
meses
to
ha
obtain
estado
a
tratando de
license.
obtener una licencia.
Actually, we're trying to obtain
Estamos tratando de
the
obtener
license to
una
obtain
licencia para obtener
off-premise beer and wine license to
una licencia
be able to compete
para poder competir
properly with the rest of
adecuadamente
the
con el resto de
grocery
los
stores in the area.
supermercados
And in order to obtain this, we
ubicados en el
were
área para
required
obtener
to
este
obtain a
permiso.
letter
Nos requirió obtener una
of public
carta
convenience or necessity, which
conveniencia
we
pública o
believe we
necesidad
have
pública,
complied
la
with
cual creemos que lo
as far
hemos
as
logrado en
doing all
cuanto
the requirements for
a
that.
hacer todos estos requisitos para
But
esto, pero
the letter has not been
la carta
approved
no
by
ha sido aprobada
Mr.
por
Padilla,
el
which
señor Padilla,
we believe
la cual
there's
nosotros
no
creemos
credible
que no hay
reason
razón
for the
creíble
denial.
para negar.
And today we're here to
Esto
try
de
to
hoy estamos
obtain
aquí para
a
tratar de
response,
obtener una
to get an
respuesta,
answer from
para
Mr.
recibir
Padilla,
una respuesta del señor Padilla,
to let us know
para que
why
nos informe y nos diga el por qué
of this denial.
esto ha sido
And
negado.
we have
Y tenemos
about
aproximadamente
150
150
jobs just to be
trabajos
lost
que serán
because of this
perdidos
reason.
por esta razón.
So we're here to show
Entonces
our
vamos aquí para
concern
mostrar nuestro
and the concern of all
interés
of
y
those
nuestra
employees
preocupación y la preocupación de
that
todos
will
los
be
empleados que
jobless
perderán su
in
trabajo
the near future.
dentro de poco.
Did you identify yourself for the record,
Dijo
please?
su nombre para que
Sure, my name is
su nombre
Francisco
es Francisco Gutiérrez. Gracias.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Again, I will call the others. Anyone else who would like to testify, please come forward. Dolores Shagan, Sandra Vargas, Blanca Ramirez.
Como empleada de Mexicana Supermarket, vengo aquí a pedirle al señor Padilla una explicación más concreta, el motivo por el cual no nos da la licencia para vender cerveza.
I'm here to ask for a formal explanation from Mr. Padilla as to why he hasn't given us or authorized a permit to sell beer.
Pues todos los supermercados venden cerveza, han abierto otros alrededor que solo son corporaciones grandes.
Because all the grocery stores sell beer. Other grocery stores have opened their larger stores and they do sell this type of product also.
Entonces se nos hace injusto que como una pequeña empresa no nos dejen subsistir y a nosotros como parte de la comunidad no queremos ser una nueva estadística en el desempleo.
And it is also, we feel that it's unfair that as a small industry, you're not letting us maintain our business, and we don't want to become another statistic as far as unemployment.
Gracias. Mi nombre es Blanca Ramírez.
Thank you. My name is Blanca Ramírez.
Mi nombre es Sandra Vargas. Vengo como clienta de la tienda.
Hi, my name is Sandra Vargas, and I'm a customer of that store.
Vengo porque se me hace injusto que cierren este negocio. Antes, cuando no estaba ese negocio, había mucha corrupción, mucha droga.
I think it's unfair if that business closes. Before the business opened, there was a lot of corruption, there was a lot of drug activity taking place.
Ahora que está abierta la tienda, hay más actividad, se ha desaparecido esa corrupción y estamos muy contentos, pero y a la vez tristes porque van a cerrar la tienda y no es justo.
Ever since the store opened, there's less corruption, there's a lot more activity. We're very happy, business is thriving, and I don't think it's fair for that business to close.
Y habemos muchas personas alrededor que estamos en desacuerdo, mas no pudieron venir, pero nosotros venimos representando a esas familias. Por favor, que nos consideren, aunque no somos mayoría, pero por favor queremos que nos consideren y por favor ayuden ese negocio para más personas tengan trabajo.
There's a lot of other people that support this store to stay open, but they couldn't attend. Even though we're not the majority, we're here to ask you to please support us to keep this store open, and therefore it will continue providing jobs for a lot of people.
Muchas gracias. Mi nombre es Sandra Vargas.
Thank you. My name is Sandra Vargas.
Mi nombre es Dolores Sagún. Yo vengo representando a la tienda La Mexicana Supermarket.
My name is Dolores Sagún. I'm here representing the grocery store La Mexicana
Supermarket. Yo soy una empleada de ahí y se me hace injusto que no les permitan la licencia para el licor.
I'm employed by that supermarket, and I think it's unfair that a permit has not been granted to be able to sell beer or liquor at that store.
Somos 140 empleados que estamos en riesgo de perder nuestros empleos y nosotros de ahí es donde sobrevivimos y queremos que por favor.
It's 100 of us that are employed at that store. We're about to lose our employment, and that's how we make our living. Therefore, we ask you to please
nos escuche el presidente Padilla para que nos otorguen la licencia para el licor.
What we're asking is to please President Padilla to listen to us and to please grant us a permit to sell liquor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Let me call forward, we still have 3 minutes remaining, Itzel Espinosa, Delfina Benicia, Maria Elena Martinez, and Felipe Barajas.
Hi, my name's Rosie Perez. I'm here as a customer. I am very happy with the service. I'm happy with the supermarket. I agree with everybody about the store. There was a lot of crime there before. I've been in San Fernando Valley. I grew up here all my life. I was born in Mexico. And I think that this story brings a lot of the Mexican traditions, and it brings a lot of, I guess, I don't know, it's just a great story, and I think that you guys should keep it. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't. And there's a lot of liquor stores, there's a lot of 7-Elevens. I think it has to do with the competition at the Vallarta store. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I think that it's a great store. I don't know why you don't want to keep it or why it is. I don't know what the problem is. I'm just here to represent the clients, and I'm very upset, as you can see in my voice. I think it's wrong. Anyway, thank you. I hope you support us, and thanks.
Yes, hi. My name is Itzel. I work at, Mexicana Supermarket. I just have, 7 months working there? And people have kids, and we don't want the store to close down because there's no, so, we're just here so you can just please give us that license so we can start, growing that store bigger. Thanks, and my name is Itzel.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Elena Martínez. Vengo como trabajadora de la tienda Supermarket Mexicana.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Elena Martinez. I'm an employee of the grocery store La Mexicana.
Veníamos a decirle al señor Padilla cuál es el motivo. No es necesariamente también tener la licorería, pero todos los negocios tienen ese mercado de licorerías.
We'd like to ask Mr. Padilla what the reason is. It's not necessarily that our business has to do with selling liquor, but all of the other businesses use that as a market niche, and that's to sell liquor.
No queremos perder nuestros trabajos. He tenido 6 años en otra marqueta. He estado ahorita apoyándolos a ellos como personas latinas también, y si estuviera en otra marqueta también los apoyaría, pero no queremos perder el trabajo, no necesariamente por el licor.
I've been working there for 6 years, and we'd like to continue supporting the supermarket because we're Hispanics. We want to continue supporting it. I've been doing it for that long period of time, and not necessarily just for the main reason of selling liquor.
Y a un comentario más, cuando fuimos a su oficina, comentaron que utilizábamos a los niños porque los llevamos, pero si ese día no trabajamos, con que íbamos a pagar babysitting, no era el pretexto de llevarlos para que los representáramos con ellos los niños.
Another point too is that when we went to your office, we were told that we were using our children to go there. That's not the reason why we took our children. We took them because since we weren't working, we weren't getting paid, we didn't have money then to pay for babysitters. So it's not appropriate to say that we took them as an excuse to use our children to take them when we went to your office.
Muchas gracias, les agradecemos si nos apoyan para no perder nuestros trabajos. Mi nombre es María Elena Martínez.
Thank you very much. We would highly appreciate your support so that we won't lose our jobs. And my name is María Elena Martínez.
Mi nombre es Delfina Benicia y soy empleada de la tienda Supermarket. Delfina Benicia.
Good afternoon. My name is Delfina Benicia, and I'm an employee at that supermarket.
Y como empleada también no me quiero quedar sin trabajo si cierran la tienda por ese motivo, por mis niñas y porque pues de ahí dependemos del trabajo.
And as an employee, I don't want to lose my job. That's how we earn money for my children, and I don't want it to close for that reason.
Pues le queremos pedir por favor que les otorguen ese permiso para no quedarnos sin trabajo y seguir pues manteniendo nuestra familia.
And I would like to please ask you to grant that permit so that we can continue working and we can continue providing for our family.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Felipe Barajas y vengo representando al supermercado La Mexicana.
Good afternoon. My name is Felipe Barajas. I'm here representing the supermarket La Mexicana.
Y venimos a pedirle al presidente aquí, Alex Padilla, que pues por favor nos otorgue la licencia para vender el licor y no perder nuestros empleos todos, porque tenemos muchos hijos.
We're here to ask President Padilla to please give us that permit because we don't want to lose our jobs. None of us want to lose our job. All of us have a lot of children.
Y los hijos dependen de nosotros y nosotros dependemos del trabajo. No queremos ser carga para el gobierno, pedir estampillas, pedir welfare, pedir muchas cosas que se piden aquí.
Our children depend on us and we depend on our job. We don't want to become an additional responsibility to the government. We don't want to have to ask for food stamps, for welfare. We want to continue working.
Ya vivimos, somos latinos, vivimos aquí en este país y tenemos que trabajar honradamente.
We're Hispanics. We live in this country already. We want to continue working with honesty and integrity.
No queremos más de que nos otorguen la licencia para el supermercado Mexicana.
We are not asking for anything other than for the permit to be granted to the supermarket La Mexicana.
Y es todo lo que le pedimos al señor presidente Padilla, que nos dé la licencia para vender el cerveza. Es todo de mi parte.
And that's all we're asking. That's all we're asking, Mr. President Padilla, is for you to grant that permit to be the liquor license so that we can continue working. Thank you. So that we won't lose our jobs.
Thank you. The additional time for public hearing has now expired. We will make sure that the other cards that were submitted representing the market are made a part of the record. And let me recognize Mr. Padilla at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and colleagues. I appreciate your
Gracias, señor
patience. I know our
presidente, colegas, aprecio
official
su
business of the day is done,
paciencia,
but
ya
just
que
spend a
se
few
ha
extra minutes here to
acabado
listen to the folks. And if you'd allow me, we can't
Si me
act
permiten, no podemos ahora
on this.
tomar
This isn't
acción.
something
El día de
before
hoy
us
no es
today
algo que
for
está
action,
pendiente para
but I
tomar
did
acción,
want to just
aunque
respond
quería
to the folks that
contestar
have
a
come
las personas que han venido
here.
aquí.
En verdad me da mucha tristeza,
Me da mucha tristeza,
porque han
¿verdad?
venido aquí
Porque han
ahora
venido aquí
con
hoy
esta
con
petición.
esta petición.
Pero quería comenzar
quiero
con
empezar
aclarando unas cosas.
aclarando varias cosas.
En primer lugar, de abrir la tienda no fue mi decisión.
Abrió la tienda no fue mi
Fue
decisión.
una decisión y una inversión de parte del dueño de la tienda. Si la tienda se mantiene abierta o cerrada, no es mi decisión, es la decisión del dueño.
El dueño.
De ofrecerles empleo, esa fue la decisión del dueño de la tienda, no mía, del dueño de la tienda. Y si esa decisión cambia, si su opinión cambia, es la responsabilidad y la decisión del dueño, no la mía. El único papel que yo tengo en este caso es o apoyar o oponerme a la aplicación del dueño en vender licor de esa tienda. Y ustedes tienen razón, sí hay otros mercados en el área, otros mercados que venden licor. Esas tiendas, no sé si lo sepan ustedes, esas tiendas se abrieron, fueron aprobadas antes de que yo comencé mi servicio con el municipio, antes de mi elección. No hay nada que yo pueda hacer con esas tiendas porque se aprobaron antes de que
fueron aprobadas antes
elegido.
de yo ser elegido.
Pero desde mi tiempo,
Pero desde que yo llegué,
yo he querido ayudar a esa comunidad, porque ustedes bien saben cómo es el área de North Hills. El área directamente alrededor de esa tienda es una comunidad que sufre de demasiada violencia. Hay demasiados establecimientos que venden licor, mercados y otros tipos. Y si este sería el único mercado en esa área, sería una cosa. Si los residentes de esa área estaban sufriendo porque tenían que viajar demasiado lejos para comprar comida, sería otra cosa, pero sé que hay opciones alrededor de ese lugar. Yo me he reunido con el dueño de la tienda. No sé si él les comunicó esto, pero yo me reuní con él hace como 2 o 3 meses para hablar sobre este asunto. Y fui muy honesto y directamente con él que por estas razones no iba a apoyar su solicitud por cuestiones de otros establecimientos que ya venden licor, por cuestiones de violencia, por cuestiones de todo eso. Yo aplaudo su inversión, yo aplaudo el hecho que ha habido un mercado en esa
un
comunidad.
mercado en esta comunidad.
Y si él
Y si él
sinceramente está comprometido a esa comunidad, él la va a mantener abierta y los va a mantener a ustedes como empleados. Y creo que es falso,
es incorrecto y es injusto
y que él está tratando de poner la responsabilidad de él sobre mí, causándome que yo me vea mal, porque en verdad no es cierto.
porque en realidad no es verdad.
Colleagues, what I've just told the group is
Colegas,
that
lo que le
I'm
acabo de
actually
decir al
very
grupo es
sad
que yo
today.
estoy muy triste el día
I'm
de
very
hoy.
sad
Estoy muy
that
triste que
they've had to come here for fear of
tuvieron que
losing
venir
their
aquí
jobs.
por temor a
I'm
perder
sad
sus
because
trabajos.
it's
Me da
clear to
tristeza
me that
porque
they've been
es bastante
misled by the
claro que
owner
han
of
sido
the store.
engañados por el propietario
Just
de la
like it was
tienda,
the
tal
store
como
owner
era el propietario de la tienda que el que
to open up a
decidió abrir
supermarket,
este
just like it's the
supermercado,
owner's
tal como
decision
es la decisión de
to hire them to
el
begin with.
propietario
It's
de
the owner's
contratarlos, es
decision
también
of
la
whether or
decisión
not to
del
keep the store open.
dueño de
And
mantenerla
it's a
abierta o
sad
no, y
day
es un día
when
triste
an
cuando
owner is
un
threatening his
propietario está
employees
amenazando a sus
to
empleados
obtain a liquor license. It's a
para
sad day to
obtener una
threaten them
licencia
that
de
unless
licor. Es
the
muy
store gets a
triste
liquor license, they'll
decir
lose
que
their
si
job
ellos
or
no
they're going to have to
recibieron
close.
permiso de
You know, if this was the only
vender licor,
supermarket in
tendrá que
the
cerrar
area and the
esa
residents
tienda.
around
Ese es
that
un
neighborhood have to
supermercado y
travel
los
far
residentes de esa
distances
área tienen que viajar
to buy
lejos
food,
para comprar
fresh meats
comida,
and produce, that'd be one thing. But
vegetales,
that's not the case.
carnes,
As some of the
cereal,
speakers
más
said,
personas al
there's other
tal como
supermarkets in the
ciertos
area. The residents there do have options. The
personas
residents
del
are also
público
said
dijeron, los
there's
residentes
a lot of other
tienen opciones, hay otros
liquor
mercados,
and
hay
alcohol selling
otros
establishments. That
establecimientos
too
que
is the
venden licor y
case. That's
cerveza.
why
También
there's
eso
a
es lo que
bill in the
corresponde
state
que
of
hay
California called the
un proyecto de
Caldera
ley en el
Bill.
estado de California llamado el
And this is a census tract
proyecto de
known
ley
as
Caldera.
a
Y esto
Caldera
es
census tract because of the over proliferation of alcohol selling establishments in that community. You know, Mr. Ledlow during the public comment was asking me why I opposed the liquor license, just trying to get more background. In addition to being a Caldera census tract, this is a community that suffers 226% the rate of the citywide rate of crime.
de crimen,
226%. There is a gang injunction in an area. It's a clear area. It's these things for a reason. And to provide easier access to alcohol in this community is not the direction that I, as a council member of that district, want to move in. So the fact that there's other markets and liquor stores in the area that sell alcohol, that is the case. That came before my election. And there's very little we can do about that. We try. But on cases that come, now that I'm a council member, for supermarkets that want to sell alcohol in an area where not only is the alcohol not needed, but I don't think the residents are unduly being punished for lack of options. This is certainly not the case. So that's the explanation I've offered to the workers, the customers, the residents that have come down to testify today. This isn't on our agenda today. I don't foresee it being on our agenda in the near future, but they came seeking an explanation. That's my explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Again, this is not a matter on our agenda today. We cannot take an action, but at this time, Mr. Ludlow pressed his button to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, and I'm keenly aware that we can't act. I wanted to rise and say a couple of things. One is to echo what Council President Padilla said in acknowledging your presence here today and standing up to support him in what is a very difficult decision. All 15 of us here on the council have to make some pretty tough decisions on a regular basis. And one of the toughest decisions I think we come by is how we improve the communities in which our families live in. And unfortunately, in Los Angeles, we're seeing a time now where so many store owners in some of the more disadvantaged parts of Los Angeles are presenting this image that the only way they can make a living is by selling alcohol in our neighborhoods. And if you were to look at a map of Los Angeles, and I'd encourage many of you to do that because you work and live, I'm sure many of you live in Los Angeles, but to look at a map and look at where those of us that look like we do live, look at income levels in Los Angeles, and look at where all the alcohol is being sold. It's an unfortunate picture, and it's a challenging one that many of us have to deal with every day that these licenses are applied for. But I think you'll see that most of us on the council honestly believe in a couple things. One, everyone has a right to earn a living in this city. Everyone needs to earn a living in this city. Businesses have the right not to be able to do business in this city. What we've got to do to ensure that the type of things being sold that unfortunately are being very connected to rising crime rates in certain areas are not misled, or the public's not misled into believing that in our communities you can't also make a profit selling milk, selling bread, selling diapers, selling butter, selling vegetables, selling good meat, good produce. Those are the types of things that we can buy, businesses can sell, and there's proof that those businesses can thrive and do just as well by not distributing alcohol at a disproportionately over-concentrated level in the areas where our children live. I appreciate the way in which he took the time to explain his position on this. I recently had to make a similar decision, and it's a tough one. And it's unfortunate to hear what the owner in this situation may be saying to each and every one of you. But as you go back to your community, I hope you recognize the dynamic that Councilmember Padilla and many of us here are dealing with on a regular basis. We want to support business in Los Angeles. We want to make it easier to do business in LA, but we're also saying to business owners, let's be responsible and let's not seize and siege on the communities that are most disproportionately being hit by the overconcentration of alcohol and liquor, and that is a tough dynamic for many of us to deal with. And so thank you all for coming down here today. Thank you for the courage to speak, and we hope that as you move back to your place of employment, that you ask the tough questions of your owner, because none of us want to see you lose your job because he or she can't sell alcohol in our neighborhoods. That's not where we want to take this city. But I appreciate you all coming down here, and I appreciate Council President Padilla taking so much time to address at the end of the council session.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlow. That does close public hearing. Madam Clerk, what else is before us?
Council has excuses on the desk. Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused to leave at noon on the 14th and to arrive late on the 23rd of January and the 25th of February for city business. Those meet council policy.
Mr. Garcetti is excused on those days.
Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Friday, January 23rd for city business. That meets council policy.
Councilmember Hahn is excused.
Councilmember Rice requests to be excused Friday, January 16th for personal business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Weiss is excused.
Councilmember Cardenas requests to be excused Tuesday, May 25th for city business. That meets council
That's
policy.
advanced planning, and excuse is approved.
Councilmember Villaraigosa requests to be excused to leave early on Wednesday and to arrive late on Friday, and also on Wednesday, February 11th for city business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Villaraigosa is...
Councilmember...
Mr. Villaraigosa wants to revise that. All right, then just the following two dates will be approved.
Councilmember Cardenas requests to be excused January 9th through the 14th for city business. That meets council policy.
That excuse is approved.
And Councilmember Rice requests to be excused January 13th to leave at 11:30 for city business, and February 13th, and that's personal business, and those meet council policy.
Mr. Rice is excused on those days as well.
And that clears the desk.
Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just asked you to have 21 and 23 forthwith.
Items 21 and 23 are going to be sent forthwith without objection. Items 14 and 15 as well. All right. Members, are there any announcements? Mr. Garcetti?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Many Angelinos today, colleagues, are celebrating Christmas because it's Eastern Orthodox Christmas. Among others, celebrated by our Armenian population here. So I'd like to say Christos Zanav, Yev Hainetz Zav, with apologies for any pronunciation mistakes, to all of our Armenian population here and to everybody who's celebrating Eastern Orthodox Christmas. I'd like to wish them a happy holiday. I also, colleagues, would like your attention. I think many of you knew last year when we did the Free Cash for College program and what a great success that was throughout the city in getting our young people to apply for the entitlements, the Cal Grants and other scholarships that are really the roadmap to a better future for them and their families. That we had the worst statistics of any county in the state, and we're already boosting those, and 2 years running have had the largest college fair in the country here in Los Angeles. But the rubber hits the road when we have the series of events out there in our districts, and there should be one of you who doesn't have a free Cash for College event in your district. We need you, though, to help us. A lot of the schools that participated last year are not participating this year. Right now, we have events scheduled, Lincoln High School in Council District 1, Canoga Park High School in Council District 3, Pierce College in Council District 3, in Council District 6 at El Proyecto, Council District 9 at Fremont High School, and LA Trade Tech College, CD 11 at Venice High School, in 12 at Kennedy Monroe High Schools, CD 13 at Belmont, Los Angeles City College High School, in 14 at East LA College, and in 15 at Los Angeles Harbor College and Los Angeles Southwest College. But there's great places like Marshall High School, John Marshall High School. There's a lot of council districts yet that don't have any events for this free Cash for College. This is a way for your constituents, the young people in your districts, to get those scholarships they deserve. So in districts 8 and 4 and 10 and some of the other ones that don't yet have events, please be in touch with either myself or David Rattray at the Chamber of Commerce at 213-482-3987. So if council staff could be aware of that, it does cost money to put on these events. It usually costs about $5,000. A lot of assembly members are interested. They participated last year and they're putting some money forward. But working with our other officials, we should have a free Cash for College event in every single district in this city. So please ask me, David Rattray at the Chamber of Commerce, or folks from the Mayor's Office, Joy Chen, who can help coordinate that. But it was a really great, successful event last year, and we hope to make it so this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Any other announcements? Mr. Laban?
January 1st came, it was a wonderful parade up in Pasadena, and there was a wonderful float in that, January 1st, but also in the afternoon, a wonderful event took place following the parade, and the great parade. And Los Angeles is the longest running entry into the Tournament of Roses parade, but there was a great game, and I'd like to call on Councilmember Parks, I think, who'd like to express, I'd like to follow up with a little analysis after his fine words.
Mr. Parks.
No, I appreciate that. You know, it's a kind of trend. USC won the Rose Bowl, but actually a national championship. I had the pleasure of being in Mexico with a group of people that were Michigan fans, and they were noisy for one quarter, and then they moved on. But it was a great game, but also USC winning recently the women's championship in volleyball, 40-some games streak, second title, consecutive title, and also just recently won the men's water polo title. And so it's been a great year for USC, and I think we had the #1 golfer in college sports was here at the council recently that we brought in. So SC's had a great year, and we mandated that victory with that motion about the BCS just before we went on vacation. So that was through your help, Ed Reyes, and I know it killed you for UCLA.
I just want to congratulate you on half of the national championship. I just want to add to that. No, what was tremendous about that day, it was a great athletic contest, two great teams, and a great tradition. And I think the one thing about the University of Southern California Trojans is the way they executed and the way their coach, Pete Carroll, made changes that applied great pressure from their defensive line. 9 sacks that harassed the very fine quarterback from Michigan, but the tremendous touch of their quarterback who threw the ball so eloquently, Matt Leonard, who did such a wonderful job. And we are Councilmember Parks, and I believe the mayor's office, Mr. Smith, and I'm going to help out. We're going to have some parade for the national champions when they get back to school here, and go from the steps of City Hall down to the university through downtown, the great 9th District of Jan Perry. But I think it's wonderful that they won, and it's the one thing I just wanted to say about it is because it takes so hard to get there, and they work so long through the heat of the summer, these student athletes, and it gave great focus and attention on Los Angeles with the University of Southern California, the great university which is in the center of the city, winning the national title. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
I just want to say that for those who do not like the Trojan band, we're going to try to get them here on the 23rd, and the cheerleaders. And so if you have some concern about the USC march and such, you may want to be off that day.
We may have some excuses following around, Mr. Cardenas.
I just want to make sure that we congratulate all the USC fans, but as everybody knows, these championships and these wonderful years that USC is experiencing is cyclical. And it sounds like USC is going to be very strong for the next few years, having freshmen and sophomores on their team. But when I say it's cyclical, there's that old wonderful, wonderful public school in Los Angeles, UCLA. Do they have football? UCLA. We'll get there. UCLA, they will have their day as well, but hopefully maybe we can start a tradition where USC will be national champs and UCLA the next, et cetera, and we'll just keep it right here in Los Angeles forever. Thank you.
All right. Members, are there any adjourning motions today? There are, so let me ask everyone in the audience, please, to rise. All right, let us begin with adjourning tributes. Ms. Hahn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I would like us to adjourn this afternoon our meeting in honor of Bill Tiger Reese, who was the voice of San Pedro. He passed away on December 30th at the age of 87. Tiger was the football announcer for San Pedro High School for more than half a century. He also called games for Mary Stark C High School and for Harbor College for 40 years. His running narratives always included a touch of humor. He was named as San Pedro Citizen of the Year in 1981, and he received numerous other community honors throughout his years, including awards from the San Pedro Pirate Booster Club, the Boys and Girls Club. And since his passing, thanks to a recommendation from Joe Donato, who's the president of ILW Local 13, we're looking to memorialize Tiger by naming the Tiger Reese Memorial Stadium at Daniels Field. Tiger moved to San Pedro with his family in 1921 when his father was stationed at Fort MacArthur, and he graduated from San Pedro High in 1935. After serving in World War II, he returned to San Pedro and got a job working for DWP, where he started out as a meter reader and where he worked until he retired in 1978. He began announcing football games in 1946 when a friend asked if he could fill in for a San Pedro Auxiliary Club game. He was reluctant because he was afraid of talking in front of people, and he had a tendency to stutter. But he took the challenge and ended up being a natural. It took more than 40 years to get him to stop. He started announcing for San Pedro High in 1947 and never accepted any money for his work. When he retired in 2001, everyone wished him well, and everyone thought he did a great job. We actually honored him down here on the City Council in November of 2001 when he retired, and he said that was one of the highlights of his life, to come down here and being honored by the Los Angeles City Council. He is survived by his wife Mary, his daughters Martha and Leodana. He has 2 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, and the funeral will be held on Thursday, January 8th at 1 p.m. at Green Hills Chapel. And the family has asked that in lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the San Pedro Pirate Boosters. And many of the kids who played sports in San Pedro over the years said it was a real thrill to hear Tiger mention their name or announce them having completed some great play during the game. And many of them said that they actually tried to play spectacularly just to make sure that Tiger announced their name during a game. He will be missed by all of San Pedro.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Labange?
Thank you. That was very nice, Janice, of a very special person. Another special person who passed ahead of their time is Tug McGraw, who was a great pitcher for the Mets and great pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. He was born in California, and Martinez went to Vallejo Junior College, where he was signed by the Mets. He had a great professional career, and he excited New York when the Mets won their only championship there in the late 60s. I ask that we adjourn in his memory. He is survived by his sons Tim, Mark, and Matthew, and his daughter Carly. And his daughter-in-law, Faith Hill. And it's an interesting story that his son, Tim McGraw, didn't realize that it was Tug was his father until years later, and they reunited, which is an interesting story all the way. But I ask we adjourn in memory of a great major leaguer who wrote 3 children's books and articulated Casey at the Back when the Philadelphia Pops played one summer. Tug McGraw, great man.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Other members? Mr. Parks?
Señor Parks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to ask us to adjourn in honor of Charles Dumas, a local athletic hero, ranked among the top 3 high jumpers in the world, was ranked #1 twice in 55 and 59. He attended Centennial High School in Compton, played a key role in their state championship in 1955, was regarded as one of the top high jumpers in the nation, moving to the top of the list in 1956. He was the first athlete to high jump 7-foot gold, and he also was a gold medal winner in the 56 Olympics. He broke this record at 7 foot during the Olympic trials at Los Angeles Coliseum when he was competing for Compton College. After winning the Olympic gold medal in Australia at a then record of 6 foot 11.5 inches, he went to USC where he lettered for 3 years and helped them win the NC2A title in 1958. He served as the captain of the track and field team in 1960. He also was an excellent hurdler. He was inducted into the National Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1990 and in the USC Athletic Hall of Fame in 97. He worked for the LA Unified School District for nearly 40 years, serving at various schools around Los Angeles, staying at Jefferson High School, where he was the Dean of Students for more than 15 years. He retired from LAUSD in 2001. He passed away at the age of 66 on January the 5th. Funeral arrangements are pending.
Thank you. Ms. Perry?
I'd like to put my name on that as well, and I would like to adjourn in memory of Enrique Duarte. He had a long history of working with the City of Los Angeles, including many years as a security officer for the Office of the City Attorney on the 18th floor, as well as 2 years in Council District 9 at my field office. He was always kind and helpful and made our staff feel safe, and I'm happy that he was able to join us just last month at our staff holiday luncheon. He was a part of our Council District 9 family and will be sorely missed. He passed away due to a heart attack at the age of 44 on Sunday, January the 4th, 2004. His memorial service will be Wednesday, January the 7th at 6 p.m. at Bagues Hermanos Funeraria Chapel at 1930 East 1st Street, and his funeral services will be held Thursday, January the 8th at 10 a.m., same location.
Thank you. Mr. Zine?
Request we adjourn in memory of retired police officer Lawrence James Moore, also known as Larry Moore. Councilman Parks and Smith joined me in this tribute. Larry Moore served the LAPD for over 31 years. He was a rookie during the 1965 Watts riot. He took great pride in being a member of the LAPD and especially enjoyed training young officers for duty and helping them to stay fit through the many athletic activities he oversaw at the police academy. Larry served the city as a patrol officer and motorcycle officer for 13 years and as the athletic director at the police academy for the final 15 years of his career. He helped create and conduct the Baker to Vegas Challenge Cup Relay and created the toughest alive competition, which is now a part of the California Police and Fire Games and the World Police and Fire Games. He was a member of the boards of directors for both of those organizations. His daughter, Kara Clifford, is a detective with the LAPD, and his other daughter, Kelly Soper, has recently begun working as an LAPD dispatcher. Larry remained active in programs which benefited the LAPD since he retired and began a business to perpetuate many of the programs with the LAPD along with his old partner, Chuck Foote. Larry crashed his motorcycle on a lonely desert road 70 miles south of Las Vegas on November 6, 2003, and spent 44 days in the trauma-intensive care unit of the University Medical Center in Las Vegas before he succumbed to his injuries on Friday, December 19th. He will be greatly missed by all his family, friends, and members of the LAPD. He is survived by his daughters, Kara Clifford, LAPD detective, Kelly Soper, LAPD dispatcher, his grandson, Brady James Soper, his former wife, Judy Moore, and his longtime companion, Terry Johnson. May retired officer Lawrence James Moore rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. All members will be on that. I'd also like to ask the council to adjourn in the memory of two people. Harriet Axelrod, an activist in the Pacific Palisades who died December 21st at the age of 87. She had been born in Kansas City, Missouri, but came to Los Angeles with her husband in the 1950s, where she continued her activism in writing and working with children. She was president of the PTA at Paul Revere and at Palisades High School, and she went on to do other things such as working on chairing the Pacific Palisades United Crusade. She was a board member of the Pacific Palisades Human Relations Council and president of the Palisades Historical Society. In 1984, she joined the Plato Society at UCLA and led some very active study groups. And in 1985, she was designated the foreign correspondent to go to Oslo, Norway, with the Physicians for Social Responsibility that year that they won the Nobel Peace Prize. She had continued activism in terms of specifically dealing with writing. And I was talking to her good friend, my mother-in-law, Norma Ring, who told me that every day of her life, particularly after she started writing some 20 years ago, she wrote a poem. And they have been collected, and a lot of her words were read at her own memorial service, which happened last week. So I'd like to ask the council to adjourn in her memory. She is survived by her 5 children, 8 grandchildren, and 1 great-great-grandchild. And I would also like to ask the council to adjourn in the memory of a career newsman who spent some time here at City Hall, Reed McClure. His name is Donald Reed McClure. Reed McClure was the editor of the Santa Monica Evening Outlook editorial pages through the 70s, and before that, he was actually a reporter down here on the City Hall beat for the Santa Monica Evening Outlook, which is a paper that doesn't any longer exist. He did that for 21 years, having been raised and, I believe, he was born in Glendale, but moved to the Palisades at an early age, and went to Pali High, worked at St. Matthews, went to University High, Emerson Junior High, and attended Palisades Elementary School as well, Santa Monica City College, and then got his journalism degree from UCLA in 1956, where he then continued his life and career in journalism, 21 years at the Evening Outlook, and after he left that paper, he then went to the Daily News, where for 18 years he was the reporter and worked on the editorial page there as well. He is survived by his wife of 37 years and by his sister-in-law and her husband and numerous nieces and nephews. He was a very, very good reporter who covered the story here, particularly from the City Hall beat, and both from the Santa Monica Evening Outlook and the Daily News. So I ask that we adjourn in his memory. Madam Clerk, call the roll. Council's adjourned.